Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for tuning in this evening for our online Bible study. Let's get into it. I welcome you if you are new to the study. I'm Pastor Dave St. Aubin, and it's a joy to be with you here this evening. Tonight, we will be looking at the book of Ezekiel chapter 27. So I invite you to grab your Bibles, open them up to Ezekiel 27, grab something to take some good notes with, grab a beverage, and grab a snack. Let's get into it. Well, again, good evening and welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I do pray that your day has been going well. Pray that your week's been going well so far. Happy Wednesday on this Thanksgiving Eve. It's good to be with you as we continue our journey through the Bible, one chapter at a time. We've made it now into the book of Ezekiel, chapter 27, and last night we had some streaming issues, so hopefully you caught our study on our YouTube channel or on our webpage. But last night we started this section of chapters that looks at this oracle against the city-state, the nation of Tyre. And we looked at chapter 26, 27, 28 are all going to focus on this oracle of judgment against Tyre. And that's what we saw last night. Tonight, this theme continues, and we're going to see this funeral song, this funeral psalm, this lament over Tyre. And as I mentioned last night, when we look at Tyre and we look at Egypt, we'll see alternating back and forth this oracle of judgment to lament, to judgment to lament. So tonight we'll be focused pretty much entirely on the lament over Tyre here in chapter 27. Now this chapter, it's mainly poetry. There is some prose. There's a lot of poetic sections. Ezekiel composed this particular poem in the traditional Hebrew funeral song rhythm. So again, this is meant to be read not just as poetry, but this is a very serious lament. This is deep mourning over what has taken place here with Tyre. So a lot to look at here as usual. Not a long chapter, so not a long study, but boy, there's a lot in here, so let's get right into it. Open up to Ezekiel chapter 27, and if you don't have a Bible, not a problem. As always, we put all the verses up here on the screen for you so you can follow along, take some good notes, and we start here in this funeral lament with this comparison to Tyre, this comparison to being a great ship. So this lamentation, it begins with an image of the glory of Tyre, of the city of Tyre, its architectural beauty, its military strength, the glory of the nation. So that's how this chapter begins. Verse 1, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, take up a lament concerning Tyre, and say to Tyre, situated at the gateway to the sea, merchant of the peoples on many coasts, that this is what the sovereign Lord says. So God is instructing Ezekiel to write this lamentation over Tyre, this great lament. Now, at the time, Tyre was world renowned for its leadership in the world, its seafaring leadership, its commercial leadership, not so much its military might, but its economic strength. So to write a lament over this type of a present situation of Tyre would have been a bit confusing, because at this time they were still a strong nation state. This is what the sovereign Lord says. You say, Tyre, I am in perfect beauty. So it's the neighboring kings here that are singing this first line of this lamentation poem, this funeral dirge over the demise of Tyre, which we saw last night in chapter 26. verses 15 through 18 specifically, Ezekiel here is the one uttering this particular song. So last night we saw the kings of the surrounding area lamenting, not so much the kings, but the leaders of these smaller communities. Now it's Ezekiel. And Tyre had taken great pride in itself, great conceitful pride. So this is just another cause of judgment by God. Just as Jerusalem did, Tyre considers itself to be perfect in beauty. Verse 4. So that's what that means. You say, I am perfect in beauty. Verse 4, your domain was on the high seas. Your builders brought your beauty to perfection. So Ezekiel is linking Tyre to this beautiful merchant ship. And he's going to use this imagery to portray Tyre's pride and prominence and dominance as a maritime power. And all the materials that had gone into construction of this mighty maritime ship that Ezekiel is comparing Tyre to were the finest. It was the finest quality of these materials. And that's what we're going to see here. Verse 5. They made all your timbers of juniper from Sinir. They took cedar from Lebanon to make a mast. So the planks, perhaps those that form the hull of this ship, were juniper from the Mount Hermon region. The mast was made of a strong cedar from Lebanon. Again, the best of the best. Verse 6. They made your oars of the oaks from Bashan. The oars or the rudder of the ship were the best strong oaks available from the region of Bashan. Of cypress wood from the coast of Cyprus, they made your deck adorned with beauty. So the decks of this ship were made of cypress, the beautiful wood inlaid with another beautiful ivory. Verse 7, fine embroidered linen from Egypt was your sail and served as your banner. So this embroidered linen sail for this ship had come from Egypt, which was famous for its linen and its linen products. And this sail had really become the distinguishing flag or the banner for Tyre. So again, Ezekiel is comparing Tyre to this great, beautiful merchant marine ship. Next verse, your awnings were of blue and purple from the coasts of Elisha. The awning over the deck, or possibly the deck itself, was this attractive combination of beautiful violet or blues, purple colors came from the coastlands of Elisha, which the coastlands of Elisha were Italy and Sicily and Cyprus. Those were possibilities. Syria was another possibility. In other words, Tyre's development as this nation state, it came through this obtaining the finest materials of the day, and that all came to be by trading with the producers of these materials. So Tyre had grown in economic power by engaging in trade with these other nations to acquire all these best materials to make themselves beautiful. That's what that said in verse 4. Verse 8, men of Sidon and Arvad were your oarsmen. Your skilled men were aboard as your sailors. So these strong men of Sidon and Arvad, which were neighboring towns in the area, they were the rowers of this ship. The skilled men were the pilots. They were the wise men of the ship. Verse 9, veteran craftsmen of Byblos were on board, and they were as shipwrights to caulk the seams. So the repairmen on board, they were wise men from the famous elders of Byblos, which was in Lebanon. So again, all the finest materials, all the wisest men. And all the ships of the sea and their sailors came alongside to trade for your wares. So all these other nations, these other peoples, they cooperated with Tyre because, again, Tyre was the leading economic power of its day, the leading economic marine power, maritime power. Verse 10, men of Persia and Lydia and Put served as soldiers in your army. They hung their shields as helmets on your walls, bringing you splendor. These famous mercenaries from these distant lands, they were on board the ship. Tyre was able to attract these warriors from these other nations to fight in their economic army because they were economically strong. The men of Tyre themselves, they were not soldiers. They were traders. Traders, traders. They were economic wise men. So these foreign soldiers, these mercenaries, came from as far away as Persia and Lydia, which is modern eastern Turkey today. They came from Put, which was on the African coast of the southern Red Sea. These soldiers, and they contributed to the glory of Tyre's reputation as a mighty nation state. Now, again, this is a funeral lament, so this isn't any type of Ezekiel giving praises to Tyre or recognizing them for their great wealth. This is a lament over what they were about to lose. You used to have all this glory. And remember, last night in chapter 26, we looked at Tyre was leveled flat. There was nothing left after God's judgment. So when we read this as a funeral lament of crying, deep mourning, not a puffing up of look how great you are. This is, wow, you came so far down that it's impossible to comprehend what happened to you. Verse 11, men of Arvad and Helek guarded your walls on every side. The men of Gamad were in your towers, and they hung their shields on your walls, and they brought your beauty to perfection. These men of Arvad and Helek and the men of Gamad, which these were, they're really not known places today. We're not really entirely sure where they were from. But they were part of the fighting force, the military strength of Tyre. And they hung their shields on Tyre's walls, which symbolized that they had identified themselves as being people of Tyre. They pledged to defend this nation. Some scholars, some translators they believe Helek, and again, Arvad and Helek and Gamad, we really aren't sure where they are, but some believe that Helek was the name of a region where, in particular, the Apostle Paul grew up, but hard to say. We're really not sure. And then in the next section, verses 12 through 25, we see the extent of this commercial empire of Tyre. So this next section is a valuable resource to us for understanding the natural resources, the geography, the trade relations of the time, and they help to explain the extensiveness of Tyre's empire, the reach of their empire. And notice the large number of places, the large number of products that are named in these next verses. So verse 12. So here's one place, Tarshish. Tarshish did business with you because of your great wealth of goods. They exchanged silver and iron and tin and lead for your merchandise. Greece and Tubal and Meshech, they did business with you. They traded human beings and articles of bronze with you for your wealth. So Tyre's trading partners included Tarshish, which was at the western end of the Mediterranean Sea, which probably southern Spain or Sardinia, somewhere in that area. They gave silver and iron and tin in trade for these great wares of Tyre. Greece and Tubal and Meshach, they paid for their products from Tyre with human beings, with slaves, and these vessels of bronze. Verse 14, men of Beit Togarmah, they exchanged chariot horses and cavalry horses and mules for your merchandise. The men of Rhodes traded with you. Many coastlands were your customers. They paid you with ivory tusks and ebony. Again, the finest of the materials were flowing into Tyre because of their economic wealth, their knowledge in trading. So the people of Togarmah, which is modern Armenia today, they gave horses and mules and war horses, chariot horses. That's what they traded with Tyre. The men of Rhodes, which would have been somewhere along the Gulf, the Persian Gulf area, they traded and they paid with ivory tusks and ebony. Rhodes was also a Greek seaport in the Aegean Sea. So these people came from far and wide to trade with the nation state of Tyre, and they traded their best. They gave the very best, and it helped to build up this economic strength within this nation state Tyre. Here's another nation, Aram. Aram did business with you because of your many products, and they exchanged turquoise and purple fabric and embroidered work and fine linen and coral and rubies for your merchandise. Aram is modern day Syria. That Syria provided all these emeralds and these embroidered fine linen cloths and rubies and corals and all the best. Verse 17, Judah and Israel traded with you. They exchanged wheat from minute and confections, honey, olive oil, and balm. Judah and Israel also traded with Tyre. They exchanged wheat from Minit, which was western Ammon, where the Ammonites were from. They exchanged these confections, these cakes. They exchanged honey and olive oil and this healing balm. Verse 18, Damascus did business with you. Because of your many products and great wealth, they offered wine from Helbon, wool from Zahar, casks of wine from Izal. They exchanged all this for your wares. They brought wrought iron and cassia and calamus. So Damascus in Syria, they found Tyre to be an attractive trading power too. Because of Tyre's extensive inventory of products. So they paid for these products with wine from Helbon, which is near Damascus today, white wool from Zahar, which is also near Damascus. All these fine materials flowing into Tyre because of the products they had to trade with. Verse 20, Dedan traded with saddle blankets. Arabia, all the princes of Kedar were your customers, and they all did business with you in lambs and in rams and in goats. These other Arabian areas, which were mainly nomadic people, they paid for these wares with livestock, lambs and goats and rams. Verse 22. So again, notice the number of nations and the amount of products pouring into Tyre. Verse 22, the merchants of Sheba and Ramah traded with you. For your merchandise, they exchanged the finest of all kinds of spices and precious stones and gold. Verse 23, Haran, Caneh, Eden, merchants of Sheba, Asher, and Kilmad, they all traded with you. In your marketplace, they traded with you with beautiful garments and blue fabric and embroidered work and multicolored rugs with cords twisted tightly knotted. Haran is Aramea today. Caneh is in Mesopotamia. Eden, south of Aramea. Sheba, eastern Arabia. Asher, which is Assyria, Kilmad, somewhere in Arabia, that they all came and they traded with Tyre and they exchanged what they had, which were carpets and garments and finely crafted clothing. And again, all this were pouring into Tyre. Verse 25. And the ships of Tarshish serve as carriers for your wares. You are filled with heavy cargo as you sail the sea. So ships from Tarshish, again, somewhere in Spain on the Mediterranean, carried all this merchandise into Tyre. Tyre became very rich because of all this sea trade, and they were prosperous and they were glorious all throughout the Mediterranean world. And this whole section of this chapter, it underlines the extensiveness of the trade that was taking place and the influence that the people of Tyre maintained and the influence that they controlled, all in the day of Ezekiel. And then God is going to reveal that this great ship, this great commercial empire, was headed for shipwreck. Verse 26, your oarsmen take you out to the high seas, but the east wind, which we know that as being Babylon, will break you to pieces far out at sea. So these merchants had brought Tyre into these great waters of doing this extensive trade with all these nations. But now they are about to encounter a strong east wind that's going to break it up. And that strong east wind is Babylon. Verse 27, your wealth, your merchandise, your wares, your mariners, your sailors, your shipwrights, your merchants, all your soldiers, everybody on board will sink into the heart of the sea on the day of this shipwreck. All who had contributed to the success of Tyre's enterprise were going to fall into the chaotic sea when God overthrows this ship, this economic empire. Verse 28, and the shorelines will quake when your sailors cry out. All who handle the oars will abandon the ship. The mariners, all the sailors will stand on the shore. They will raise their voice and they will cry bitterly over you, and they will sprinkle dust on their heads, and they will roll in ashes, and they will shave their heads because of you in mourning. They will put on sackcloth. They will weep over you with anguish of soul and with bitter mourning. Again, this is a funeral song. This is deep lament. The cry of the people when this destruction came would cause everybody, even the onlookers, to bewail and mourn. They were going to lament the demise of this once great commercial empire, which at the time they had regarded as the mightiest economic empire of its kind in all the earth. And God is saying it's going down. I'm going to break it up. Verse 32, and as they wail and mourn over you, they will take up a lament concerning you, and they will say, who has ever silenced like Tyre, surrounded by the sea? When your merchandise went out on the seas, you satisfied many nations. With your great wealth and your wares, you enriched the kings of the earth. But now you are shattered by the sea. In the depths of the waters, all your wares, all the people, all your company, they've drowned with you. They've all gone down with this sinking ship. Now we have a lamentation within this lamentation. And Tyre had satisfied all the materialistic desires of these nations and kings around them that we just looked at. But now they're all going to look on with horror because this great ship has just sunk. Verse 35, and all who live in the coastlands are appalled at you. Their kings shudder with horror. Their faces are distorted with fear. All these trading partners were going to stand in just appalled at what happened to Tyre. And all the kings that traded with Tyre, they are now going to fear for the prosperity of their own kingdoms as a result of the fall of Tyre. This was going to have an economic snowball effect throughout the land. Verse 36, and the merchants among the nations will scoff at you. You have come to a horrible end, and you will be no more. Tyre itself would quake with terror and then would pass into oblivion. The record of Tyre and what just happened to them has relevance for our day as well, because all those areas that they excelled in, they were the envy of the entire ancient world. All those reasons are precisely the same areas that nations today seek superiority. And so this message of Tyre is a message for our age as well, that all the riches of the world, without God, they won't satisfy anything. In fact, they keep us from being dependent on God. So it's a warning for us today that all the riches of the world aren't going to do anything to save us. In fact, the more materialistic we become, the less dependent on God we become. And that is the message of Ezekiel chapter 26. And I pray that that has been a help to you. Go back and reread this, but again, this is not a poem meant to puff up how great Tyre is. This is a deep song of lament with wailing in the soul, how great you were. And now we're dumbfounded that you are wiped off the earth. That is Ezekiel 26. We won't have class tomorrow. It's Thanksgiving, so enjoy that time. And we won't have class on Friday. The studio will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday, but we will resume next Monday. And we'll look at the final chapter of this section on Tyre, chapter 28. And we'll look at a judgment speech against the ruler of Tyre. So chapter 28 on Monday, but thank you for being here this evening. Again, I do pray that this has been a help to you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have a blessed Thanksgiving. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Till then, take care, and God bless. Bye-bye.